Hi everyone, in this session we will see how to deploy the artifact that we uploaded in our S3 bucket to the EBS instance. Now I'm currently on my EBS console and I have 5 different environments, in which 2 of them are terminated because they are kind of redundant and not used. So what I have done is I have created 3 different environments which are active. That is SRS dev environment, production environment, and test environment. And in the applications, I have one application, Spring REST service, which will be deployed to the environments that we created. So if you want to create, environment, all you can do is you can go to environments, create a new environment, and select a web server environment if it is being accessed over HTTP, and give the application name, and the environment name. And if you want to create a auto-generated domain name, you can leave it as blank, and then select the platform depending on the application that will be deployed into the environment. Select the environment. In our case, it is Java, so we selected Java, and then click on create environment. So that's how I created 3 different environments here. So to deploy the application to EBS through our GitLab CI, that in our first part we uploaded it to S3, right? Now we want to move that artifact from S3 and deploy it to the our EBS environment, that is this environment that we created, and currently we'll be deploying it to the dev environment because we are working on develop branch. So to do that, we have to follow some steps. First step is to create the application version. So what is that? If you look at here, if you click on the application name here, and if you go to the if you see running versions, it says sample application, and if you again click on that, it will give you the running version, that is sample application. This is something that we it's a sample code that got deployed when we created the environment or the application. So this is not the one that we actually deployed from our GitLab or manually uploaded to the EBS. So this is something sample. But for application versions, if you see here again, when we look at the application, there is something called application versions. This is what we need to create. So if you want to upload your artifact, this is something that you need to create. That is version label, also called as application version label. The next part that you need to do is you need to tell that which environment you're trying to deploy it. So those are the 2 steps that we need to do. One is to create the version label, application version label. And number 2 is you need to mention which environment you are trying to deploy the artifact. So let's go back to our YML file, and let's update our deploy job here. Before doing that, let's update few things. Let's change few things. If you see here, we are using the application names. All these are like, again, if you see here, the artifact name is in the deploy job and also in the build job, right? So what we can do is we can externalize it and create variables so that those variables can be used in multiple commands or scripts that we use, right? So let's do that. At the very top, let's create variables, and here I'm going to call this as, first I'm going to call this as name, app name, and this app name is going to be something that we have here, that is Spring REST service. And you can you can keep everything in sync. Keep the name as Spring REST service and the same name as your application. Currently I have a Spring RESTful service. You can have the same name here too. So make sure that for simplicity you can have the application name same all your, in your project name as well. Okay, so here I'm going to name this as Spring REST service. Okay, and this is matching basically not the project name but the one that I have here. Okay, so the next what I'm going to do is I'm going to have the artifact name. The artifact name, I will use it as the app name, and hyphen, I'm also going to give the version, and the version here, what I'll do is I'll use something that GitLab provides me. Okay, instead of having a logic to auto increment or have something in my properties file and then update it, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the unique ID that gets created for each commit or each pipeline when you push your changes to the GitLab. So GitLab creates a unique ID. So the ID name is CI pipeline ID. Okay, so let's look at this. We can look at those variables if you do a Google here and search in the GitLab variables. You can have those predefined variables. You should see somewhere here where it calls predefined variables here. See, and if you scroll down, let's search. Okay, so here it says the project level IID, that is internal ID of the current pipeline. This ID is unique for the current project. And you also have something called CI pipeline ID, and this instance level ID of the current pipeline, this is a unique ID across all projects on GitLab. Okay, so being more specific to the project level, let's use this. So I'm going to use this one, and finally I'm going to give this as jar. So this is my artifact name. Okay, next I'll have something called environment. Okay, let's give that name because I'm going to use this variable when I am updating my environment. Okay, SRS dev environment, and I'll call this as SRS. Okay, so one thing to remember, instead of creating a local variables, you can also have this at project level. Okay, so that makes it more easy. Instead of you having this all here, you can have it at project level in your GitLab. That is somewhere, if you go back to your GitLab here and in the settings, let's see if you have in generals, I think it should be somewhere in the at the project level. Repository, I believe. Okay, under your settings in CI/CD, if you see here, there is something called variables. You can have those variables at the project level. Okay, instead of you having it in the pipeline. Okay, so let's continue here. Now I have my SRS dev environment variable, and what I can do is now in the build path here, instead of using this, I'm going to use the artifact name. Okay, and here again I can use the artifact name, and this is going to be my again the artifact name. Okay, so the artifact name is going to be the unique ID. Okay, version name in it. Next, one thing that we need to do is, see, when you run the build, it's going to generate something like this. It's going to add the snapshot, right? So we cannot use it we cannot use the artifact name directly in our paths, so it's not going to find. So we need to add a script here to rename it with the artifact name here with this what we have. Okay, for that what we can do is we can add a script and that's called move, and this is going to be called as target, and this will be something that it's going to be the app name. The app name is basically Spring REST service. This is what it gets generated, so I'll use this app name 0.0.1 snapshot.jar, and I'll move this to the same folder, and I'll call this as the artifact name. So what I'm doing here is all I'm doing is I am basically the one that gets created in our package, that is maven package command. Here I'm moving this file Spring REST service and renaming it to the one that we have here. Okay, and so that whenever we run this script, AWS script, it's going to pick the correct file name. Okay, so that is something that we added now, and just making sure that the artifact name is right here. It is Spring REST app name, that is what we have here, and 0.01 snapshot.jar. Okay, this looks good. Fine. So next step is to add the script here, and this is first we'll add the application version. So for that we use AWS command elastic beanstalk and create application version. Okay, and here I'm going to say this application name. The application name is the one that we have the variable. Next I'm going to create the version label. The version label is this. That is a version label, the one that the GitLab pipeline creates for us. Next I'm going to tell that, okay, where do the artifact is available? It's available in our S3 bucket, right? So let's give that the source bundle. The source bundle is S3 bucket, and the S3 bucket is here. This is the option. Okay, so let me just minimize this. Okay, now this looks good, and S3. Okay, so S3 bucket, and finally then I'm going to tell that what is the name of the file or the object that you want to pick from the bucket, and for that we have S3 key. Okay, S3 key that equals the artifact name. So this is the artifact name. Okay, so that's all for the creating the application version. So what we did, we used the AWS elastic beanstalk command where we create the application version. Then we added the application name. So what we are trying to update is this. Okay, Let's go back to our AWS so it becomes easy to connect. So here, this is the application name. That's what we added. Okay, the application name. Then the version label. So the version label is the one that we have from the pipeline. And then finally we tell that, okay, you from where the artifacts needs to be picked up. And that is from the S3 bucket. And the key is nothing but the object name within that bucket. And the object that will be created is the artifact, that is the jar file. Okay, so that's with the application version. Next, what we are going to do is we're going to update the environment. And we're going to, what we'll do is we'll copy the same command, because most of the things will be the same. And here I'm going to say update. Now basically I'm saying that, which environment this needs to be updated. The file, basically the artifact. The next is the update the environment. The application name will be the same. And here we have to add the environment name. Environment name. And the environment name is this. So I'm deploying this. This job is basically going to deploy to the dev environment. Okay, so here it's going to be this. Okay, so I have the environment name set up. Next is the version label. The version label is going to be the one that we already have in the previous command. Okay, so that's all. I guess we are now good with the update environment. What we did, we added the application name. Okay, so this is how it's going to be. Okay, if you're trying to deploy to the SRS dev environment, you need to give the app name. Okay, that's what we did, the app name here. The next is the environment name, this itself, the environment name. And the third thing that we mentioned here is the version label, and the version label is nothing but, if you look at here, this is the running version. This is what we are trying to mention in the command here. Perfect. So with this, we have two main tasks that we achieved by using these two commands. Okay, so let's save this and push the changes, and let's see that if the artifact gets deployed successfully to our EBS. Okay, so let's commit this. Let's commit and push. Let's go back to our pipeline here. So this is now running. Let's see how this goes. Okay. Okay, the job is successful because now in my previous build basically failed because there was a typo in my YML. Basically it was like, instead of having this, I was having a typo here. Okay, so I fixed it and redeployed, and the job was successful. Okay, so let's look at the logs, and you can see that the job was succeeded and was deployed to our EBS instance. So let's go to our environment, that is SRS dev environment, and you can see that the running version is now changed to 57, and this is nothing but the one that GitLab created for us, the ID. Now if I try to access it, okay, I access the application here, basically to give 404 because we are not trying to access the user service, and you can see that we're getting a response. So our application was successfully deployed to the EBS instance. And this is how, I guess now it's clear with all the steps that we need to add to get our application, that is the artifact that we build, to deploy to our environment, that is EBS service. Okay, so that's all for this video, and I'll see you in the next session. Till then, take care. Thank you.